How's it going, everyone? This is Mike, and I'm back for another episode of Genre Files. Now we're up to episode 15, I think. And the subject for this week, well, first of all, what do you think of my t shirt? Designed by my good friend Dave Koenig. See that? It's one of the most clever things I've ever seen anybody come up with. Dave, I love this shirt. I never want to take it off. I do, but I never want to. Okay. The genre for this week is, let's see, nature out of control, nature gone wild. So anything about, you know, the earth, something to do with the earth exploding into chaos, or animals and all that stuff. My friend Forkerball he chose the film The Food of the Gods, which is about animals that become giants and they start eating people. So I decided to do something with plants. There's a whole genre of kind of a subgenre of science fiction about killer plants that either get infected by radiation, or they come to life, or maybe they come from outer space and they decide that they want to kill people and eat them. Classic films like The Day of the Triffids and Matango, also known as The Attack of the Mushroom People, great Japanese flick. And in this one, they actually become the mushrooms, which is kind of cool. And then one of my favorites, From Hell It Came, about a man who comes back from the dead as a tree that walks around and gets revenge on all the people who did something to him. I don't know. Well, anyway, along those same lines, I've chosen a film from 1966 called The Navy versus the Night Monsters. Okay? The Navy versus the Night Monsters. How can you go wrong with the title like that? So supposedly it had a different title when they were filming it. It was going to be called The Night Crawlers. And then the producer announced that they were going to use this title, and everybody in the cast threatened to walk out because they thought it was so stupid. But they didn't. They stayed there. It only took about 10 days to make the film anyway. A budget of about $178,000, and it shows every penny of it. Now, this film has an outrageous plot. I read you some of the stuff on the back here to see if I can explain this. There's this, yeah, an American scientific expedition to Antarctica, or Antarctica, if you want to pronounce it that way, has discovered that underneath the ice there is a series of underground lakes that are warm, and there's vegetation. Okay, so they decide they managed to get some of the vegetation out, and they want to ship them back to the United States so that they can study them and all that sort of thing. Well, on the plane that these things are being shipped out on, these plants actually come to evil life, and they start growing and they start killing. They are some kind of weirdness plants that secrete acid, right? They not only want to strangle people and eat them, but they also burn them to death. So it's just a big mess. So the plane crashes on a South Sea island where there's a Navy base, and that's where all this takes place. The Navy base is populated by a collection of grade B actors, headed by top-billed Mamie Van Doren, the bad girl of the 1950s, who by 1966 was still bad, still gorgeous, and still not a bad actress, really. I mean, all the actors in the film, they got Anthony Isley, who came from TV, Pamela Mason, who was a fairly distinguished British actress. They have, let's see, Bobby Van, who had done a series of Broadway shows and did some MGM musicals. Billy Gray, who had been in, what had he been in? Oh, Father Knows Best, right? Pretty good actor. All these people are playing this with dead seriousness, and they're actually very believable actors. Some of the dialogue that they have to do is kind of inane, but some of it's not bad, and they're all very earnest, if nothing else. So anyway, all these people are involved. Mamie is a nurse. Anthony Isley is the captain of the base or something like that. Billy Gray is the communications expert. Bobby Van is another enlisted man. So they're all trying to cope with the fact that this plane has landed on their island and these trees are growing. And of course, they don't figure out what's going on at first. So for some reason, these trees only come alive and walk and kill at night, hence the name Night Monsters. That's not really explained why they only come around at night. But it's all very dramatic, and it's kind of violent and bloody. And then they finally find a way to defeat them, which is to drop napalm on them, right? So you just burn the trees, and that's it. So it's all very silly. It's strangely enough, this movie is The photographer for this film was Stanley Cortez, of all people, who had done films like The Magnificent Ambersons, the Orson Welles film back in the 1940s. He did The Night of the Hunter, one of the best and most beautiful films of all time. And it was directed by a guy named Michael Hoey, who did a lot of low-budget films and a lot of television, and produced by Jack Broder for Real Art Pictures, which was the studio that came into being in the late 1940s in order to re-release the old Universal horror films and put them on double bills, and they made a lot of money doing that. And they also started making some of their own low-budget films. And the uncredited co-producer of this film was Roger Corman. And like I said, it was made in 10 days. It was only 78 minutes long, and not a bad little movie, all things considered. And I guess Broder wanted it to be 90 minutes long because he wanted to be able to sell it to television, right? So it needed to be a little bit longer. So after the film had been finished, they went back and they put in a lot of additional scenes and a lot of endless stock footage of military scenes, planes flying, soldiers running all over the place and shooting at things, and it just to pad it and make it longer. And they also added some characters supposedly in Washington, D.C., who were in contact with the people on the South Sea Island. So in a way, they kind of spoiled it because they made it look like a big talk fest for a lot of the film. But the rest of the stuff where the action was taking place, even though it was all grade B stuff and, creeping monsters and all that, it really wasn't all that bad. It's kind of cool. So, I don't know. As walking tree films go, or walk, The Navy versus the Night Monsters is actually a lot of fun. And I think that if you like this kind of low-budget thing, and if you like walking trees, I think you really enjoy this. So anyway, that is my film for Genre Files, Chapter 15. Comments are welcome. Good night.